Hello, Prashanth Neel, and welcome to Galata Plus.
Thank you so much for inviting us here.
K.G.F, as you can see, is all around us. K.G.F 2. I want to know, what was the state of mind of Prashanth Neel before the release of Ugram? What was the state of mind of Prashanth Neel before the release of K.G.F 1? And what is the state of mind before the release of K.G.F 2?
I think it was all the same.
It is all the same?
It was all the same. Many people say it is a blessing that I know editing, but it's actually just the opposite.
Okay.
You edit the movie, you write the movie, then you shoot it, then you edit it, and then you slap some music onto it, and you lose judgment towards the end in a very severe manner. The final bits of judgment that you're getting from the movie is some dubbing operator, the dubbing engineer, and the DTS guy, and he's the only version of whether the movie is good, it's exciting or not. And you're scared to even ask somebody else around you because some of these people are going to be biased. And it's happened to me. This is the third time. I'm nervous right now. I'm tensed. I don't know how I was flown down to Chennai to do this interview, but I'm tensed as hell.
Is the tension coming from just the fact that it's a movie of yours that's coming out, or is it because it's K.G.F 2?
Even during the filming of K.G.F. Chapter 2, we never put any emphasis on the fact that this is big. The expectations are huge. They have somehow liked the first one, so now we got to do something with this. There was no expectation like that from us. It's just now that we finished our work and we are done with it, and now people are saying, I think that is going to be big in the movie, or this is going to be big in the movie, and the story that we are trying to tell. Everybody had their own perception of what the story could be.
Right.
When you tell only half the story and you stop it, and then you are, everybody becomes a director there. Everybody becomes a writer, and we don't know if I don't know. I mean, my team. I cannot talk about Yash. Yash is supremely confident of whatever he has seen, and that's why I don't talk to him much about this. It feels like, at the end of the day, I want people to like the story that we are trying to tell. The narrative that we've weaved in, and the transition that we're making from 1 to 2 is something that I really hope that they like it, because I'm surely not going to give you the same thing that I gave the first time around.
There is an extra pressure here than there was with Ugram then.
Yes and no. Actually, if Ugram did not work, it did not work box office wise for me, but it gave me a big enough
It was a good
name.
calling card.
Yeah, it was like there is potential here.
Yeah.
So if I wouldn't have realized that potential with Ugram, I don't think I would have gotten K.G.F.
Right.
So that was equally important for me. And when K.G.F. came in, the pressure was that we were making a Kannada movie.
Right.
All the way through.
Right.
Not to belittle that, I was making only a Kannada movie, but I was making a Kannada movie with a very, very big star. He was a superstar at that point of time. The pressure comes down, when you're making it with the superstar of that industry, and they're already ready to whistle.
Right.
They're already prepared to, come there and forgive you for your itsy bitsy mistakes. But then, in the last leg, it was probably about 6 months before we released the movie, they said that, we're going pan-India.
Wow.
I said, this is not the budget that you gave me for a pan-India movie. This is not the idea. So they said, what is different? We have watched the movie. We are not going out on a whim and a fancy thinking that, okay, it looks very big, so let's go out. I'm telling you, I've watched the movie, and I think it's going to connect. It's got a universal appeal, and that is the way they told me. And I did not speak to these guys for about 4 months because they decided all this right at the end. They were making all these associations with Excel, and Anil Tadani sir came in, and I was disgruntled about everything that was happening. I said, you should have briefed me the day we started filming, and they asked me, what would you have done differently? And I said, I don't know. So the pressure with chapter 1 was very different, and it was as important as that. And now chapter 2, I don't know, it's just blown out of proportion,
Right.
And I somehow stay away from all the online banter that happens. So I did not feel that as much before.
Right.
But now all of a sudden, it's starting to seem very real.
Now, you mentioned itsy bitsy mistakes, and I want to ask you, now every director, when they look back on a film of theirs, they'll feel I wish I'd done this a little better. I wish I'd done this a little better. And at the opposite end of the spectrum, there will be scenes where you'll say, wow, the scene came out much better than I thought it would come out. It's come out actually very beautifully. Can you give me an example of one scene of this type and one scene of that type from KGF 1?
The second half, when it begins, we have this elaborate action sequence. We had done it very differently when we wrote it down. Right now what happens is there's an action sequence where people have already reached the village and they're picking up people and they're going. So the sequence that we had there was, he goes there to the village as one of the villagers, and these guys just come and take him, assuming that he's part of that, and that is how, that would have been very easy. And for me, that was the story. But we had to change it because we had a star and we needed an action block there. And yeah, that's something that I still regret, but I know a lot of people tell me that that set piece was beautiful in the movie.
Yeah.
But for me, as a maker, I'm a little disgruntled about that. The other flip side of things is there are a lot of these, I've put a little flashbacks in the movie.
Yeah.
2 cutbacks.
Actually, you did that in Ugram as well.
I did that in Ugram as well. Yeah. So I put it in this, and I knew it was good, but the kind of feedback that I got, and we shot both of those scenes on the same day.
Right.
Both the scenes, because I didn't want to spend too much of money on that.
Right.
Too much of energy on that. And I got a feedback that those 2 scenes were probably the most kick-ass scenes in the movies. And also the bun scene, where he picks up the bun. We shot it and we said, this, at least it's going to remind you of the mother. But that became, I know many stars who have told me that, that's one of their favorite scenes that they've watched.
Yeah.
So I did not realize that we did something like that.
No, so let's take the scene where he picks up the hammer, right? That's where he remembers the childhood. In Ugram also, I think it's the very first fight, if I'm not mistaken, where he's at that marketplace kind of a thing, and he remembers his childhood again as a little boy. Again, this is an insert by you.
Correct.
Is it a theory of yours that at our most, our adult behavior is dictated a lot by what we experience as a child?
Yeah, that's something that I believe very strongly, that if I have to show a hero hit 100 people, he must have got that strength or that madness because of something that happened to him. Because I've rarely seen people in my own life who have changed after they've grown up. Like they always say, now it's too late. Like, parents say, now it's too late to do anything about this boy. So I've seen that. And also I come from the school of the 70s movies.
Right, you've told that, yeah.
Yeah, and I love those movies. They were repeat watches for me the entire 90s, the late 80s and 90s. That's what I used to watch on VHS tapes. And for me, it started off with the childhood, whether it was a revenge drama or, the 3 brothers separating. So that made a huge impact on me. And I strongly believe if I have to show a hero beat up so many people, he's not just going to college one day and all of a sudden he tears off his shirt and he beats a few people. So I try and build that character up from when he's a kid.
Inside.
Yeah.
But your peculiarity is, and I mean this in a very good sense, is that you give us slivers of that. You don't give us a scene, or you don't give us shots even. It's almost like flashes of memory are happening rather than like an entire event being remembered. I think that's quite unique actually from what you're saying. It's like
so that sort of becomes from an edit point of view.
Yeah.
That we probably, I think most of us, we look at the scene and we say we just need something more over here. And because we already have the childhood portion, and we think, why don't we just bring it in over here,
right,
just to give that heightened sense of, something big is going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
So that's an edit point for
decision.
us.
Yeah, and that edit decision, I think, is what gives the action scene the emotional background, rather than it's just being an action block. So now, when you first met producer Keragandur of Hombale Films, you apparently narrated a family subject.
Correct.
And then he said, okay, do you have something else? And then you said, well, I have the story. And then you told him this one scene of K.G.F.
Correct.
And then he said, let's do this.
Correct.
What was that one scene?
That was the first time Andrews comes to Mumbai
Okay.
to, ask Rocky to go and kill Garuda. That's a supari
Okay.
that he basically gives. And that's the only scene that I said, that this is very big guy and he's the henchman, the hero is the henchman to this guy. And then somebody else comes and this guy goes and holds the umbrella and on him and brings him to him, and that guy says, I want you to come and do a job for me. If you do that, I'll give you Mumbai. So that was the only scene that I discussed, and he said, you know what, we are doing this. And it was unanimous. I think that was an effect of Ugram also.
Right.
So because Ugram didn't work for me, money-wise.
You don't like the film?
No, I liked the genre, of course. I still learning. I didn't work under anybody, so it took me about 3 years for me to make the movie.
Oh, like that, okay. Yeah.
So it took me a long time to make it, and it was not my product at the end of the day. Like everybody feels. What Ugram told me at one point of time was, I think I didn't make a movie for the families. So I should try something like that. Now that I have another opportunity and somebody else is giving me that opportunity, I think I should try to make a family movie. And they liked the subject. They liked the subject and they said, let's go ahead with it. But I think somewhere they sensed that, I was not happy with it entirely to make a family movie. So he just asked me, if there is something raw, the kind of movie Ugram is. And I said, I have one. And the rest is
the
history.
scene you said and the rest is
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
When you're working with any actor, star, non-star, whatever it is, sometimes you choose somebody and like you place them in front of a camera and they're exactly the person that you imagine them to be as the character. But sometimes it may not be, they may be a little bit different. Which is that scene that convinced you that, wow, I thought of Yash and yes, Yash is indeed the right choice?
I think Yash, it was almost like I had to imagine it because he did a very bubbly love story called Googly.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I had seen him. I knew that there was this rising star somewhere, but that's the first time I went and watched that movie because my co-director said, you should watch that movie. There's no love story in your movie. You should see how they're lapping up this love story. So the intention was different. But when I went and saw him there, I became a fan of his. And when my producer asked me, when I narrated that scene, and he said, who's going to fit into that? And he didn't look like Rocky at all in that movie. But I said, he could look like Rocky because he has that attitude of Rocky. So the whole design behind that and the whole understanding behind that was very simple. That I wanted an actor who could have that magnetic presence about him, and the swag and the quirkiness. For somebody to perform something like that, it's very difficult. So that was an instant reaction that, I said yes, the moment he asked who should play this.
Like right from day one, he was like...
Absolutely.
He was exactly what you imagined Rocky to be.
No, he transformed himself.
Okay.
Once I told him that, this is how he is going to be. He's going to be unkempt, a little rugged, and, he has to have a beard. And he started thinking that way. And he said, I like to do something like this. People look at me differently, and he put in a lot of effort just to grow his beard. He used to always curse me because he was not used to having such a big beard.
Right. And now the beard is almost a USP, a part of the character. It's all like his suits or like the chains or whatever it is. It's now part of Rocky.
We wanted to remove it. We wanted to remove it for chapter 2. That is how the transformation is going to be. Of course, we had written it as just one movie. So we said, the first half and the second half should have a change. So the second half, we had written it with him shaving and just having a mustache. And he was not willing to do that. After he saw the movie, we just had those 2 flashback portions to shoot in chapter 1. He said, I am not doing that. I can't take off my beard. I'll not look like Rocky. And he convinced us not to take it off. That took a lot of convincing,
Actually, you've said this in many interviews that you consider yourself first a writer and only then a director. What does that mean?
When you talk about a writer, you don't have writers for stories.
Right.
You have writers for screenplay. And for me, that is very, very important. Apart from the technical aspects of what we are making, I've never believed in how good the story is. It's always how a story is told. It can be any story,
Right.
like what Hollywood has taught you. They make a movie about ants, and then they make a movie about Godzilla, and they convince you with both.
Right.
So for me, it is how a story is told, and that comes with screenplay, and you don't give the same screenplay that somebody else has given already. You want to do something better with that, and I believe in that a lot. You know, it became very easy for us with chapter 2 because of the screenplay. It was not because of the story. We had written, I had already said, you know, this is how it's going to begin, this is how it's going to end. But the screenplay that we made, the difficulties that he has and how he overcomes them, that was a very big challenge.
Right.
And that became very easy because we had written it right at the beginning.
Right.
So for me, you know, when I talk about writing, I talk about the screenplay.
But aren't you already being a director? Because as a director, let's say there's just a plain screenwriter writing a movie, then he's only thinking about characters and scenes. But as a director, when you're writing scenes, you're already thinking, okay, zoom, telephoto, you know, like I want this. You're already imagining it visually, right?
I think more than those technical aspects, I'm thinking editing.
Okay.
For me, it works that way that, you know, I move from this scene to this scene to this scene, you know, and we think about, we talk about words like tempo and, you know, where we have to go up, where we have to come down. So I think you're right when you say that, you know, there is already a director thinking as a writer in something like that. But without a strong screenplay, how much ever I embellish the product, you know, how much, whatever I do, you know, I get the best action choreographers, I have the best set pieces, it will not work.
Right.
So for me to have that confidence and to say, you know, I want to spend 10 days on this action scene, or, you know, I want to blow up this many jeeps for this action scene. This is screenplay, you know, I know that there are going to be whistles at the end of this scene. So it becomes very, very important. Like, there are elements within a fight, and that comes from the screenplay.
Yeah.
That comes from the story, you know, the characterization. I cannot just put a fight there and say, you know, this fight is amazing, you should go and watch it.
Yeah. Apart from the obvious things, which is the fact that it is a sequel to a blockbuster film and Kannada cinema's biggest ever film, what is the USP of KGF 2?
I don't know if it is the biggest now that you're talking about it. There are
Hey, you've counted all the money.
a lot of movies that Dr. Rajkumar made back then were very, very big for us. And
no, I'm sure, but I'm talking about in a modern world. Yeah.
I don't think we've looked beyond. Everything happened by accident for me, and to realize where we are at this point of time, you know, it has happened so quick for the progression that we have had from chapter 1 to chapter 2, that I don't think we have had time to understand really what anything else is, you know, just the process. We have followed the process and we are here today. I think if you ask me what the USP beyond all of this is, you know, it's about numbers for me. At this point of time, I don't think, not many people are blessed to have an opportunity like this. Somehow SS Rajamouli gave us that opportunity for all of us, and, you know, we are here today. They've given us all the love and support, people from outside, from all over the world.
Right.
And we have to deliver. There's nothing beyond this. There's nothing emotional beyond this. There's nothing, you know, that I'll sugarcoat and say, you know, that I want them to love the product. And, you know, I want them to understand the soul of the movie. There's nothing like that. It's all about the numbers. Now we had the best opportunity. We have the best opportunity to prove that we can make numbers from this point,
right,
or at least with this movie. And everybody has given us that space. You know, the producer gave us the budgets, the actors gave us the time. We had the best technicians. We had the best resources everywhere. You know, we had the support from everybody.
Right.
We kept hearing that K.G.F is big there, K.G.F is big here, and they're waiting for it. So I think, you know, it boils down to nothing else but numbers. And if we don't deliver on those numbers, I think we would have failed. I don't ask me what those numbers are. We just wanted big numbers.
We just wanted a big number. You know, actually, who's the person who told me to watch Ugram? It's your cinematographer, Ravi Varman. He said, "This is fantastic Kannada film. You just have to watch it." And that's when I watched Ugram. Now, anyway, from that point onwards, through KGF 1 and now KGF 2, how has Prashanth Neel changed, A, as a person, and B, as a filmmaker?
As a person, and as a filmmaker, I learned and changed with Ugram itself.
Okay.
I had some of my worst experiences with Ugram. Everything went wrong for me from the start. The budgets went wrong. The people that I worked with were not the right people for me because I was a newcomer at that point of time. I didn't have a distributor behind me. Everything went wrong there. I changed the moment Ugram released, and it didn't do well. But people appreciated the movie, and somehow I got a name from that movie.
Changed in what way?
I changed to start thinking that I should think about myself. I don't have to think about anybody else from this point of time. I should think about the product. I should work with the right people. I should work with the biggest people, and I should get the product right. And somehow it should go to the audience. And I need a producer who's strong enough to make the movie as well as to market it out there. And as a filmmaker, I think what it told me, what Ugram told me was that people love this movie, but you have to make it with a big star. So it's the whole packaging. People love stars, they love it. It's not that I regret making the movie with Murli. I loved that whole process. Right. But it also told me that you package your movie so that it reaches out to many people. You'll struggle lesser, you'll suffer lesser, and you trust the people that you work with. You have to trust them. Like the team that I have from Ugram is the same team that I have till today, and they will continue with me till Salar and beyond.
Right.
There could be somebody much bigger out there. If I don't trust him, if I don't think that he's giving me that time individually just to me, I will not work with him. That's the whole process, that's changed.
So if Prashanth the filmmaker is given a star today for any movie in the future versus an actor who is absolutely perfect in every single way you imagine the screenplay, you would choose the star.
I'd always choose a star.
Wow.
The reason for that is this is my third movie. I'm not a big name today just by myself.
Oh, come on.
I don't believe that at all. You have people trust the product. People trust that I have made a good product with K.G.F. I'm not going to be bullish and say that I can do something all by myself. That's not done. And second thing is you are still building on audiences. You're still building on them. They have to trust you over a long period of time. The way when you talk about a Mani Ratnam, when you talk about a Shankar, when you talk about an S.S. Rajamouli, they've done it time and over again. And they've taken so many years, more than a decade. Some of them have taken more than 2 decades to do it. I cannot expect to do that just overnight.
Shankar was an instant star with Gentleman, and
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I am not a Shankar. I'm not talking about being safe. I will choose the right actors, but they have to be stars. I will choose the right actors. If I go to Prabhas tomorrow, I will write a story that will suit him.
Yeah.
I will not write something that suits Yash.
Yeah. Right.
And vice versa.
Right.
Obviously. They're all actors.
Yeah.
The best part about these superstars that I'm talking about are they've proven themselves with their acting, and that is why they're superstars.
So let me ask you an existential question. If everybody goes after stars, then how are these non-star actors who are very good actors going to get recognized? Because it's always going, that system is always going to perpetuate that this is the star movie and this is the small movie. So again, it's not your responsibility or your doing or anything like that. It's something that's been happening for decades. But how do you see it?
Without a struggle, if you are a star, it's written that you are going to be a star, or if you want to write it that you want to be a star, whether you come from a stars, you are born as a star kid, or you are born out of nothing and you want to make it big, you will make it big. Whether you struggle or you do it otherwise, Yash is a perfect example of something like that. And I struggled. My first movie was not easy for me.
Yeah.
I struggled, for 3 years I struggled. Nobody knew my name. And I came up. I deserve to choose at this point of time to do something like that. And I'm probably going to change in the next 5-6 years, where I'm going to start thinking that I want to work with newcomers.
Okay.
I'm going to probably think like that. But right now, I'm not in that mindset.
We spoke of Shankar, and I had interviewed him a long time ago, and one of the things he told me was that he has the subject in mind, this very delicate love story. And he's not able to do that because when people come to Shankar, they want a mega production. So, if you continue along this line for a little more time, and of course it's your choice and your prerogative, and if you are the next Shankar, then that's your destiny, fantastic. Do you think you'll ever be able to shift into making what you just said?
I will.
You think the audience will expect, because otherwise Prashanth Neel would become this, wow, I want to go see a Prashanth Neel movie because it's going to be this, big film with all this big stuff and that.
So right now the calculation is to give the audience what they want.
Right.
And once they know that they can trust you at some point of time, you make a movie that you like and then you present it to them. I don't think it'll change too much. Maybe they'll not like it as much as they like the other movies, but everybody does it once in a way, somewhere in between they sneak in a movie
Yeah.
which they wanted to make and they wanted to present in their own way. And I have a lot of these things that I'd written down a long time back which I want to do, but right now it's a career growth for me.
Right.
I'm making these movies which people like and they expect me to make right now. I don't want to break that cycle at this point of time.
Exactly.
And I think I will know when I'm going very stale with a particular genre. Now people think that I can only make gangster dramas. I know I will go stale at some point of time. But if I'm entertaining with those movies, I don't think I'm going to change too much.
Right. One of the things that when people read about you is that you're supposed to be very gentle and soft-spoken and all these things, and your movies are these very, very violent gangster dramas.
Yeah.
Is there some psychoanalytical theory happening here that all your suppressed, the things that you cannot do in real life is finding like a place in your films?
Yeah, I'm onion. When it comes to the work, there's something that I realized in Ugram on day one of the release. I was so scared that I didn't want to put myself in that situation ever again. So I work for every shot.
Right.
Every shot is very important for me, and I scream, and I'm very angry on the sets. Nobody likes me on the sets, and I do all of those things because it's required of me to do that.
Even if you feel like saying something softly, you still scream?
No, of course not.
Okay.
If the point is going across, I would not do it. But it becomes very necessary at some point of time that
And you find that you're able to do that?
I do. I do it all the time with a lot of panache. Yeah, I do that. I won't compromise on the shot. I don't know if I'm right while taking that shot or not.
Right.
I don't know if it is the right shot, but if we have to get that shot right. So I have those two sides to me only because that I care about that a lot.
Yeah, which is most important.
Yeah, I don't have, I have a lot of tolerance when I get out into the real world and I'm talking to people and I'm looking gentle. I have a lot of tolerance, but I don't have tolerance when it comes to my shooting.
How does this Prashanth Neel become that Prashanth Neel? Is it because of the energy of the sets or
Fear.
the fear? Okay.
It just comes out of fear that, I have to get this shot right. Because I'm convincing the audience that, I want him to get lost. Though he's watching a fantasy, he has to get lost somewhere, maybe in the first 10 shots of the movie, he has to be lost into the movie. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
In fact, what you just said, I'm just thinking of it because, Prabhas said of Salar that he's playing the most violent character he's ever played. And I'm sitting in front of this man who looks like very
software
sweet,
engineer.
nice man who's kind of, I'd like to, so wow, that's really interesting. So there are two versions of you on the web. One is that you came to the movies only to make money. There's another version that goes that you were already writing a lot of screenplays and you were always interested in films, and like that was your destination. Which is the right version?
The first one.
That you came to films only to make money.
Yes, sir.
So you didn't care about direction. You didn't. It was like whatever gave you money, you wanted to.
I would, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But why films? It's like it's the most unpredictable way to make money, right?
So, it's a very funny story. When I think I was in school or just after school, I don't know when this movie called Hum Aapke Account released.
Right.
And there was no software revolution that was going around at that point of time. It hadn't begun.
Yeah.
So it came out in the news that night that, Hum Aapke Account had grossed more than 100 crores. And that was the most I had ever heard in my life. And for some strange reason, from that day it struck that, you can make money with something like this. And I spent a lot of time on that. And before I realized that you could make money in other ways, I was already 28. And I thought, that it's better to go with something that you already have decided for the last 10 years.
So the man responsible for KGF 2 is actually Suraj Barjatia.
Correct. Correct.
That's strangely interesting and disturbing at the same
very,
time.
Very disturbing. Correct.
You are very much in demand in the Telugu film industry. I'm not going to ask you about your film with Ram Charan supposedly, or your film with NTR Jr. or whatever it is. All that can rest. What is that line that goes there? The soil soaked in blood is the only soil. There's some line like that, right? I'm like, can you give some tips on how to handle that kind of overnight fame? I would call it, because despite your Ugram, I would call you somebody who got success relatively early in his career.
Correct.
But what are the tips?
I don't think I've become famous yet. I don't think I've achieved anything yet. I'm very grounded. I know my family will not like me saying that, I think that this is a 9 to 6 job, because it's not a 9 to 6. I don't come back home at 6 o'clock. But apart from that, it's a very regular job for me. I know all the glitz and glamour. It blurs your eyes sometimes, but for me it doesn't.
Okay.
I don't think about it that way at all. Like I told you, I've come here to make money in whatever way possible, in the right way possible right now. And I'm going to stick by that. I'm here for bread and butter. And so what if I have a little extra butter with my bread? Right now it doesn't hurt. So
it's fantastic to hear you say that, because when you ask most people, they'll say the art comes first and the commerce comes later. I mean, they do admit that this is a medium of art and commerce, but you're saying the commerce comes first and the art follows it. Is that what you're saying?
I believe in that.
Okay, all right. So,
because life has treated me differently in different stages. So
right.
For me, it is that way.
Right. So, I'm going to the first show of KGF 2,
Thank you very
Chapter
much.
2. What do you want me to have in my mind other than the part 1, of course?
That's it. That's it.
That I'm going to watch a mega production, maybe? That's fairly obvious.
I think I've said this somewhere before, and it sounds cliched, that I want people to come out of the theaters thinking about this just as a story of a mother and a son.
Okay.
And we have done everything possible to make that. There's a beautiful line in the movie that Prakash Raj sir says towards the end, which I don't want to give away. That's a line very close to my heart. But if people feel that line at the end, and they come out and they say that this is the story of a mother and son, then I think I would have succeeded with something like that.
You said that you have editing training, right? Like, so when you're thinking of a film, you are like, for example, when the journalist in the first film walks into Anant Nag's office, you already begin cutting from Anant Nag to, he's not just giving a narration. As he's narrating, you're kind of flashing into this and flashing into that. Does all that come in the screenplay, or is it something that you put in like post-production?
That comes in the screenplay.
Okay. So you've already decided that
most of the things that you're seeing comes in the screenplay, but we improvise. Because, we have started off with a pattern that people have to get accustomed to. We cut back a lot. And I think we tend to think that, you know, sometimes if this scene is not going really well, it might be a lag scene, then that's when we insert some of these things to just make it look better.
Right, right. But here you had it in the screenplay.
Yes, we had it in the
And my last question is about the way you stage your action scenes. I think they're quite spectacular because you somehow like it's almost like every corner of this you use the whole screen. It's not just like one guy being kicked and like pushed somewhere. There's like either people standing by or there's somebody here, somebody there. There's some action bit taking place here. Like again, do you write action scenes or do you like have extensive discussions with the action film director? Because your three films, I'm assuming this one as well has a lot of action, are all very, you know, they have a lot of action set pieces. How does that come about?
Firstly, the freedom that you get with Untitled did the action sequences for us in chapter 1 and in chapter 2. You get a lot of freedom to sit down and plan something.
Right.
I don't know if everybody does that, but for us it becomes very important. They ask us what the story is. They ask about the emotion and how the hero should look, you know, where he should turn, and you know how much of pain should he show, or should he fly in the air or not, or you know he should look like he's kicking everybody and everybody else is flying. So we put in a lot of thought into that. And the next important thing when it comes to fights is, you know, the sound effects and editing. I think that determines a lot. I learned this from some of the Hollywood movies. You just mute the volume and you're seeing a very ordinary fight there. But when you put the sound back on, you're seeing some great fight sequences.
Right.
So that taught me a lot, that you know you have to get your sound effects right. And if you get your sound effects right, it'll look like, you know, this fellow has really kicked that fellow in his face. So that becomes a very important aspect for us. You know, the sound effects, the editing, and having a great action choreographer for us, and the freedom that these guys bring you.
Yeah.
You know, they come for discussions, just for discussions. You know, I don't know how it happens everywhere else, but they come for discussions at least 5 times. They come to the location, they come with me, and we talk about, you know, let's use that, let's use this. And also, when the kind of action sequences we shoot, most of them are handheld.
Right.
We give you a sense of this happening right in front of your eyes, and the DOP loves to do something like that. You know, he loves the handheld sequences a lot. So I think it's a combination of all these things that make it look a little more slicker than other movies.
I wouldn't call it slicker. I would think they're actually like they have a signature to them, and I think that's amazing. But you're saying that they begin, like it's not that when you write that block, you just say action block, and then the rest is discussion.
Correct. We talk about how the fight has to start and where it is going to end.
Right.
And in between, if somebody is, you know,
Right.
running away or
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
something,
yeah,
we
yeah.
put in all those things. And then the action choreographers come in. And then we have a more elaborate discussion. But we don't write down any of these things.
Right.
We don't write it down. You know, we go based on spontaneity. That morning when we go to the sets, they would have said, you know, we have 25 shots that we have to shoot in 2 days, but they change.
Right.
They definitely change.
Right.
They're not the same because we know the impact when we see it on screen.
And in Yash, you got a great action star as well. So.
Absolutely phenomenal.
So-
he's got a heart, you know, for a he looks like a hero. That's very, very important. You know, it looks like a hero that can hit all these people and convince you whilst doing it.
Yeah. And taking your 70s example, I think it's like Amitabh Bachchan. You know, because
My all-time favorite.
you need somebody who can say, I can do all these so-called unbelievable things and yet make them believable.
Correct.
You know, that's your hero for you. So tell me what's happening with Salar.
We finished about 30% principal photography. We were about to start our schedule again because, you know, the COVID hit us again in January, and we thought it is going to be a big break, but you know, everybody started planning their things around, and Radhe Shyam had to release first, and then K.G.F. So we have basically taken a break from that. We start principal photography again from May, and we'll go through the rest of the year.
Right. So you'll have to remove the entire baggage of KGF from your mind and then get into
that's easy for me actually.
That's easy.
That's very, very easy for me.
Okay.
That's a totally different story. That's a totally different character for me. So it becomes very easy for me.
Good. All the best for KGF too.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.